Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Ford Spalding, Chair of the FS1 Steering Committee, and I welcome you all. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, amended on March 28, 2025, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act extending pandemic-related authorizations related to public meetings, allowing remote meeting options for public bodies through June 30, 2027. Today is June 22, 2026. The FS1 Screening Committee meeting will be conducted both in person and via remote participation by the committee. The chair grants permission to Allison McCarthy to record the meeting and to anyone else who wishes to record it. If you do wish to record it, please let me know right now and give me your name and address. Hearing none, I will do a roll call of the steering committee. Jody Petroselli.
Here.
Ken Ayers.
Here.
Peter Bean. Sarah Cantley.
Here.
John Cummings.
Here.
Harry Davis.
Harry's here. I'm letting him in right now.
He's coming on now.
Mm-hmm.
Paul DeLay.
Yeah.
And I am Ford Spalding. Harry, you're here? Okay.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. In addition, you're going to hear from today our owner's project manager, PMA Consultants, and they'll introduce themselves one at a time, and also Castle Booz, architects, and they'll do the same. Press and public comments, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. And first, provide your name and address. I'll allow committee and staff to reply if appropriate. But this is not a time for a discussion. Any public comments, press? No. All right, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to chair's update. I am not going to give an update today. I think we have updates that are coming right now, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Walter Hartley, our OPM. If you could introduce yourselves and also KBA, that would be great.
Good morning, everyone. Walter Hartley with PMA Consultants. I also have Matt Muto and Julia Roberto with me from PMA. And I'll let them do their introductions once we get there, but we also have Greg and Todd from KBA. So for PMA's presentation today, we have a designer selection update, designer introduction, designer work plan discussion, schedule and next steps, and discussion on FS1 Steering Committee cadence, followed by a quick communication outreach update, and then we'll turn it back over to the chair for approval of meeting minutes from April, and then any other business. So we'll get going quickly here. Designer selection update. I'm going to have Matt run through that for the team.
Great. So we had we received 9 responses, 9 proposals. They're all listed there: CBA, Dorn Whittier, Context, HKT, Scotia, H2M, KBA, RGB, and Sports Silver. We evaluated these respondents over 5 days. We performed reference checks, reviewed the Division of Occupational Licensure disciplinary actions. We utilized a requirements and designer sub-consultant matrix, and with our evaluation sheet, we ranked firms highly advantageous, and not advantageous. The next slide just shows a snippet of all those things that I just mentioned. After we evaluated all the respondents, we shortlisted 4 of them. They were Schwartz Silver, Dorn Whittier, KBA, and Context. So on June 15th, we conducted interviews. There was a 20-minute presentation and a 25-minute question and answer. The 5 questions were prepared by the designer selection subcommittee. The committee deliberated and ultimately selected KBA as the most preferred designer. They're here with us today.
So great interview process. We were I think a little bit surprised, but happy to see the 9 proposals. So that was the reason for the small little shift in the schedule adjustment. Ultimately, we were able to meet that 7:15 discussion date and deliberation date to get KBA ongoing. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg and Todd for introduction to the KBA team.
Thank you, Walter. And, my name is Greg Joint. I'm the principal and project manager with KBA. With me is Todd Costa, principal and the lead of our public safety sector in our firm. Our team is
It's just
What's
slow
the
on the
screen?
screen. Yeah, it's slow on the screen.
our team is built with a number of individuals that contribute to all of our public safety projects, as well as this project specifically. And our consulting team is well versed in this type of project and has worked together on significant projects, much like yours. So we're ready to go and excited to get started. Just a little bit about us.
We do this to break you in.
Yeah. We service the project here out of 2 offices, Foxborough and Boston, primarily out of Foxborough, where Todd and I spend most of our time, other than in the car, on our way out to see folks. Really, this team has a lot of experience doing projects just like this in this area. Just a little bit about the process in getting started in programming. Really, we start with meeting with departments, making sure we understand their operations, their workflow, how things work here in Westwood, and then we'll get into specific items in the program about how to modernize your facility, things that you'd like to modernize in your operations, and then right-sizing things and making sure that we're building a building that is effective, both in terms of initial project cost and budget, and then ultimately on long-term operations and operational costs. So making sure we balance both things to get you the best value for the town. Just a little bit about the work plan before we go into specific items. I thought it would be important to just understand the broad sense of the work plan and how that relates to your project. So we know, very clearly that making a cost-appropriate project is incredibly important here in Westwood. Making a right-sized program to service your town is key to the success of the project. Making sure that we show a clear comparison between the 3 proposed sites, and so folks can understand the benefits and maybe some considerations for those sites. Making all that work transparent as possible so that the community has a clear understanding of what's happening and why decisions are being made. And then finally, just making sure we have a realistic path to a project and approach that can be approved for funding at town meeting. We know how bad the building is that the fire department's operating in now. We know the challenges there, and operating under temp facilities is really challenging. We want to make sure that we can provide an approach that ultimately is able to be approved at town meeting. To do that, we get into a number of steps. First is program validation. Again, making sure the program is the right size for your department, for your town, and can ultimately result in an appropriate budget. And analyzing the sites more intricately, we've taken a look at both all 3 sites, making sure we understand the challenges, considerations on each, but also what the benefits are to each one, and weighing that out against your operational needs. Incorporating community feedback, really important step every step of the way. Getting into design options as we incorporate all that kind of research and analysis, getting into proposed design options so folks can see what each site looks like after it's been developed, and then ultimately selecting a preferred option and moving that forward in the process.
That one's out of order. That was with the designer selection. I'm not sure what technical difficulties. So I think if we can save all the questions till the end, we'll go through schedule and next steps now, and then we can
Then
really
we'll have a lot.
Yeah, I think so. But what we're going to talk about for schedule and next steps is the path forward to what we discussed at the last meeting that we had, and that's also being discussed with your select board as well concurrently. And what that is looking at that November 3rd special election or November 3rd midterm ballot, potentially with a special town meeting a week before at the end of October. So while keeping that in mind, we want everyone to be aware that this process really hasn't just started. This process for FS1 has been going on since last November or last October when this committee was formed. So the steps that you guys have taken already are really valuable for the PMA team and the KBA team. You guys have had 10 meetings already. You've had community outreach meetings. You've had your internal FS1 Fire Department program review, which is going to help lead the design team with that discussion with them. And you've also already completed your preliminary site matrix of what are the most intriguing options for the committee or for the group to look at. You're now working towards what we're going to call stage 2, which is forming the team. In that process, the town's also completed a pre-feasibility study with Weston and Sampson. Good news, Weston and Sampson is on the KBA team, so they're going to be able to pick that team's brain as well. And they've been looking at that report. They're going to continue to utilize the report that was done by Weston and Sampson. But in that stage 2 time, you guys have had 8 Fire Station 1 steering committee meetings. You've had another community outreach events. You've had the talks at the library where that have been great, well attended. PMA was at the one at the fire station. That was well attended. You also had the annual town meeting to appropriate feasibility funds. You've gone through OPM selection. You've gone through designer selection. So this path, although it may seem sudden, it's really not. It's been a thought out process by the community. It's been a thought out process by the committee. And we're marching towards that with the idea that the sooner the better for the fire department, the sooner the better for the town to correct the issues that are happening at Fire Station 1 right now. So we want the community to be aware that this isn't a process that this group's taking lightly, that we had a path, that they had a path back. They're marching through that formation of the stages very well. And that once we get to that November 3rd and being that we're hoping to be able to get there, the PMA and KBA team were in a room last week, getting together a plan that'll get us there. So what that looks like for this committee, and this is what we're going to call the roadmap to getting to that November 3rd. It's going to be pretty heavy lift, and it's going to be a heavy lift for the Fire Station 1 steering committee as well. But we are looking at committee meetings on July 13th for steering committee, on July 27th, on August 10th, August 24th. And that's really to get us to that point. So on July 13th, what we'd like to be able to discuss with this group, and that's going to be KBA's real task to get us there, is validating that program and looking at the program to make sure everything that is in there has an answer. Everything can be brought to the community with an answer. We're going to be looking at test fits. PMA is in the background looking to get a title search completed. We're going to try to get that completed in advance of that July 13th meeting. We're going to look at an initial site matrix. So building on what this group did for their site matrix, with the expertise that PMA has, that KBA has, that KBA sub-consultants have, we're going to begin looking at that initial site matrix. On July 27th, we're going to be looking at the final site matrix and rough order of magnitude costs for the 3 sites. So we're going to try to look at apples to apples comparisons for those 3 sites, identify any differences between those 3 sites and how that program fits onto those 3 sites. So that'll be at the July 27th meeting. I'm just going to go steering committee at this time. We'd like to, and in order to be able to make a final decision on August 10th with the steering committee of the final site selection, to develop further, to be able to get good cost estimates for a schematic design to be able to bring to the voters of Westwood. Following that August 10th meeting would be August 24th, a project update, September 14th, project update, and September 28th, we'd be looking at a final project scope and budget with the budget to be able to bring to the voters. And that's really how we backed into the 11, 3, and 10 proposed end of September 10/26 timeline. For this committee specifically, there are a ton of other meetings in there and a ton of other things that need to happen. But when speaking to you guys, we want to make sure that we're clear with you guys on how we propose to get you there. And so those are the topics of discussion for the Fire Station 1 Steering Committee and how we get there. In between there will obviously be select board updates. There will obviously be community forums. We are specifically targeting one at the end of July so that we can have nearly the entire site matrix complete so that that can be presented, so that prior to engaging the community or prior to asking the community for input, they can have a very big piece of the puzzle, which is a final site matrix for them to look at the pros and cons. But we want to hear their feedback as well before this committee makes a final decision on August 10th. So incorporating the community feedback into this committee's discussions at that August 10th meeting is going to be incredibly important. But that's what we're looking at for those meetings. And then the one important meeting will be the select board deciding on their August 3rd meeting whether or not we are in the right place to move forward with putting that on the ballot and making sure that we get our place in line for the November 3rd ballot. There are other items that have been laid out on this roadmap. PMA and KBA have been working with Connor and Molly, who internally worked with their staff on backing into that. There's deadlines that all of their staff need to be able to have the information to get it out to your community and to be able to hit the deadlines for printing, posting, warrants, all of that item. That information was utilized to back into this roadmap for this group. So there's a lot of information fed in the background for that the town staff is aware of. And again, we are targeting that special town meeting 10/26 with the debt exclusion midterm state elections on November 3rd. So, and again, I just want to make everyone aware, schedule is a draft. This is not finalized. This is how we get there. This is what we're proposing on how to get there. Once those decisions are made final, they'll obviously be publicized as final decisions. But we want to make sure everyone's aware these are not final dates yet. They're just what's being discussed.
Would you like us to have a conversation now, or you want to?
I have 2 more slides, and they're really the same information, and it's just a calendar version of that, so everyone can see what the calendar looks like. The very light blue is what we're proposing for those FS1 Steering Committee meetings. The dark blue is that proposed timeline for a community outreach event on the 29th, specifically to engage the community. And that's June, July, and August. And then what September, October, and November look like, the 3 green dots there being important dates for your town committees and town decisions. Those are the 2 votes at the end. And then another community forum late September in advance of the vote, specifically to get that information out. So I am happy to pause there. The only other item we have on ours is community outreach. So I think we can pause and take questions and answer questions at this point.
Okay, I think the committee and whoever else wants to chime in,
Yeah.
go ahead. I want to go ahead first of all, just to get it on the record. You both have been hired to work with us on this project, and you're eminently qualified. But I want to hear from you again directly. Are you both able to meet this schedule? Do you have the capacity in your organization to meet this schedule and get it done?
I personally feel PMA does. I'm not going to answer for KBA. I think, but PMA feels that we have the firepower to get it done. That's why when we're here, you're going to see a redundant team from PMA. If Matt has a scheduling, if I have a scheduling conflict, we're going to have 1 or 2 other people even fill in. Seamus is online right now, so if someone can't be here in person, they'll be here online. PMA absolutely has the firepower. We have our marketing coordinator, Julia, with us today, taking notes. She's been working in the background on an update that we'll show you guys or let you know about.
She will be very busy.
She will be very busy. She is very busy. We talk every Sunday. So, yes, PMA does. And I'll let Greg answer for the KBA team.
So certainly the schedule is aggressive. We feel like we can technically provide the staffing and process that's needed to get it done. What that means, though, is that we'll need quick decisions on behalf of Westwood to make sure that we can have a decision made on things that we need to move projects forward. I don't see that being a problem here. I think, you've been through a process before. There's been a design for, so nothing here is starting from scratch. It's really taking a different perspective on a process that's been done before, taking a real look at what's necessary to be in the project and what things may come out, and with a new lens to some additional sites. So there aren't things like existing condition surveys that might have people questioning whether a replacement of this building is necessary or not. That those types of things are pretty much decided. The question is really, what are you doing? Where are you doing it? How much of it are you doing? So those questions are relatively easy to get answers to quickly, as long as we get a lot of participation here and get a lot of public engagement here. I think this is a realistic schedule, and will ultimately provide you the best sense of what voters think.
With schematic, I'm going to let everybody else hop in a minute, but with schematic design, you're going to have to have a schematic design done for either all 3 sites, or we're going to boil down to 1. I think we're going to have to do some boiling down beyond to get lower than 3, but you're going to have that done. And then you were talking about pricing. Pricing is not going to be on construction documents. Obviously, it's going to be on schematic design, and I assume it's going to be a not to exceed number. You're going to say this is the cap with that number. And for your cost estimators, are we going to be able to give them enough information to do the job, you think?
You want me to start? I'll go high level, you go in detail. So the reason for the roadmap is so that we can be as efficient as possible with eliminating sites to allow KBA and our estimators the most amount of time to develop those schematic design documents. For anyone that's been involved on an MSBA project, and more typically on public projects, the number that does go ultimately to the voters is typically schematic design estimate.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen communities go the route that went previously, where you get bid docs and go there. It's uncommon in PMA's history, but we are typically building a set of documents to the schematic design level, estimating them, reconciling those estimates to within 5% of each other, and then building in the proper escalation and the proper contingencies to allow you to have a timeline for design development and construction document development to take you through bidding, and then ultimately be able to get to construction with that value. So that is the typical process that we see. So we're confident that schematic design will lend us to that, but I'll let Greg go into a little bit further detail on that end.
Yeah, and forward to your point, the options, right, will get boiled down before schematic design. We will only proceed in schematic design with one option. That's what gets you to a project budget. You're gonna have to make that decision on which option you'll pursue prior to schematic design. That is relatively quick, but that also includes a rough order of magnitude estimate. That won't give you an exact budget for any of the 3 options or more than that options. Right, what that gives you is a comparative, right? This site versus that site versus that site versus this approach weighs out into this kind of cost relationship between the options. That's not something you would base the budget on. That's what we do schematic design for and go through that estimating phase for. But getting to that, decision is necessary because, frankly, we just don't have the time to pursue 3 options in schematic design, nor would I suggest that's a efficient way to do a project.
On any project.
On any project, yeah.
I'm going to stop after one more comment. I think I'll be back, but I think what's important is for the community to understand you are really doing them a favor. And you're doing them a favor, all of us are doing them a favor, by moving this project along as quickly as you can. Not only just for the fire department, because they're in a horrendous situation right now, which needs to be solved, but the cost of building, construction, inflation is really hurting this community. And we were hearing a lot right size, it was too big, it was too expensive. This is a really uphill fight for this town to try to get a project in that is going to have a cost that they're going to accept, because costs are rising very quickly. So I want to thank you for pushing this hard, and also for the select board and town administrator for doing that, because you're doing the town a favor if we can get this all accomplished as quickly as possible.
So,
Committee, any comments?
The information you provide us, if it's decided, or you're gonna provide us information for, if FS1 was gonna stay at its current site, what is gonna be needed to relocate them and get them up and running on an alternate site?
if you're saying when we do a rough order of magnitude cost,
Yeah.
yes. So what that rough order of magnitude cost is going to be once the program is validated and once the program is really hardened by the KBA team and the fire department, making sure that that's the program that's needed and that's all that's needed. They'll situate the program on each of the sites, looking at them, and then the PMA KBA team, and really, and it'll be a discussion with the town and this group as well, and that's why we have a couple meetings on it. We need to differentiate or make differentiators for each of those sites. If we're building on Deerfield, we very likely don't need to relocate the fire department. They can stay there. There's no, there might be some cost associated with the tent, maintenance on it or something like that, but it'll be very much less than relocating to another site. If we're building on Deerfield or on the existing site, you're right. We will need to look at an option for how they're housed in the time that the construction would happen. So that would be the differentiator on that rough order of magnitude, and you'll see a very high level cost analysis on what that is.
So, but could the cost of moving FS1
Mhm.
to an alternate site so
Yep.
we could build here
Temporarily,
be more costly than building either on Deerfield or behind Starbucks?
Yeah, so those will be incorporated into the rough order of magnitude. So
Because I
you'll be
think
able
that
to
that would be
see,
important to know.
certainly,
Those
certainly, it's
things-
going to be a big piece of your discussion.
and that's a right. Those cost comparisons are still rough orders of magnitude, right? So we'll know, from the previous projects about how much they were looking at in temporary facilities.
We'll need to escalate.
We'll need
those.
to escalate that. We'll get an understanding of what the fire department is looking for in those, make sure that we go back and validate what those temporary facilities will look like. I'll speak on behalf of the fire department that temporary facilities is not an ideal operating condition.
No.
So cost is not the only deciding factor, I would say, but it's a very important one to make sure that you understand not only is it costing more, but also are you operating in a condition that puts the fire department in pretty rough condition for a year or so while we build the building, in relocating them, and what does that do to things like fire response and other things of that nature, making sure that those are all incorporated into how that decision is made, that it's not just a final dollar decision, but it's a holistic decision based on all of the factors.
I want you to know who the committee is. So Ken, introduce yourself.
I skipped right over that.
And what have you done in this town?
I'm Ken Ayers. I am the former operations director for the Westwood School Department for 14 years. I just finished a project. I'm also on Permanent Building Committee, and along with John Cummins, who's on here, who's on the Permanent Building Committee, we just finished building the Pine Hill School. So,
Okay. Any other questions?
So we've had.
Introduce
you?
yourself.
Sorry, I'm Paul DeLay. I've been on the committee since the beginning. I don't have the same kind of technical background. I'm a lawyer. I run a bar association, and I grew up in this town, so I think that's probably my main my top qualification. But we've had a lot of input, community input so far. We've had it, and we've had it in different forms too. We've had people in person. We've had people submit information. We've done polling, and it looks like we've baked in more community input throughout the rest of this process, up until pretty much the very, very end. So how do you guys synthesize that into the process that you're doing? And And how will that have an impact on that? And how do we make, and as you synthesize that, how do we send a message out to the community, letting them know that you're taking that into account as part of that process?
So I think PMA touched on that a little bit last time, but we'll expand on it here. These community forums that we're talking about here and these timeframes, the community has only heard what's happened from the FS1 to date, which is really the update on the program that you guys have looked through, and then the site matrix and the 3 sites. We need to make sure that they're lockstep with us each way. So here's the information that this steering committee has reviewed. Here are what they're looking at. Kind of having them look at it in real time, hear their feedback, and before this group makes a decision, hear that feedback from the community. So we're probably looking at a survey or some type of results that we can gather from them. We don't want to go out to them with no information, though. We need to make sure that we provide an opportunity for them to see what's been going on. So that's the reason for the timing on it, so that you guys can see the feedback, hear the feedback. We're happy to bring it back to you and discuss it with you. It is ultimately your decision with that feedback and the select board's decision with that feedback. So we'll be presenting it to you guys, but we need to be really in step with those. So we'll be posting, and you'll hear it on all of the reports and all of the project updates on Facebook. So every time we have a meeting, this meeting will get onto the Facebook page. We'll get that going. We have that going in the background, the website as well. So we're going to be listening. We're going to be out in the community. I think we'll continue with whatever meetings this group wants to have. We don't want to be out there with no new information, though. So we don't want to just have people, right size FS1, right size. It's very important that was the message that was heard at the end of the vote. But now we need to validate program, let them know that program was being validated, and let them know that the site matrix evaluation, and these are the topics that are going to discuss. Let Greg answer how we take it.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's getting that information consolidated, right? Knowing what questions folks have, getting them into a format that we can answer clearly and concisely, making sure that even if there are questions that might seem simple to the committee, to us, to the department, that we address them, because oftentimes folks just have questions about pretty basic things that nobody's ever explained. How fire operations work, chief, deputy chief, I don't think you have folks asking you how your operation works day to day. Giving people a little bit of a view into that is important, so they understand not only the challenges, but some of the opportunities that there are with a new building, with a new layout, with things that you can do to improve your operational effectiveness within a building without really costing much more money comparatively to different arrangements in the building. So I think making sure folks have the ability to hear and understand what happens in the department, what happens in the building, giving them the opportunity, if they haven't yet, to see the existing building is important, but ultimately consolidating those into a place where we can provide responses, whether that be from the project team, whether that be from FS1, whether that be from the department, about those things, so folks can have that resource available is incredibly important. That and, Ford, we've worked on a project together. Connor, worked on a project together. Getting out and seeing folks where they are is the other critical piece. Not everybody is perusing the town's website and looking at the Q&As, even though we spend hundreds of hours putting.
I'm just concerned that we have a finger on the pulse of what the community wants by the time we get there. So I know you all probably have had experience. Have you known when you worked on a project, this is going to pass? I feel like the community is moved in this direction. Do you have a sense, a way of knowing that?
I would say that
it's a tough question because I'm asking him to predict the future, but it's we put in all this work. We don't want to put all this work and have people not on board with us.
So I've done a couple of these, and I think speaking from my experience, the answer is no. We don't have Gallup polling. We have very incomplete, imperfect tools on municipal level, in part due to resources and in part due to people's engagement level. And I'm not criticizing the public, but that's just a reality that the smaller the form of government, the smaller the participation, which is one of the reasons why we are all having this important conversation around, do we target November 3rd? Because that way we know we will have a significantly larger reflection of all of Westwood than on a special election. I believe, and these folks, as they've alluded to, have worked for me in my prior life, can affirm with the scars to prove that I operate like you run the project like you're behind it, say, until the votes are counted. That's all you can do. Is earn every single vote, take every single opportunity to meet people where they're at, to treat them with respect and dignity and not as an opponent to the project, and to just put the work in. But no, in my experience, I've gone into 1,100 person town meetings extremely nervous, and then had a vote come out like, oh, that was 1,000 to 10. I didn't think that could happen. And I've also gone into others where you came out, at a ballot 59 votes ahead to get something approved. So I think you do your best, and you try your best to do that. But I think it's important to accept the limitations of what is possible on this level. But I wanted to identify for a designer of the OPM that one of the, I think, real strong benefits Westwood has is that this committee has been doing a lot of those kind of community conversations that often falls onto the hired team, which residents don't always feel good about. And I'm sure you folks don't love.
No offense.
Right. Well, no offense to anyone, but it's like, okay, you're a consultant that got brought in to tell me about my community. Having, Paul, who grew up here, have a conversation about it's much more impactful. So you and the committee have a very, very important role, and I think you've been doing a good job. You're going to need to continue that. And I think, back to your question as far as how do you incorporate that feedback, you ultimately have a responsibility as the committee of how, to what extent and how much that gets incorporated. But in speaking with the design and project management team, if you look at this schedule, you will see that it's kind of intentionally that we want this committee to be coming to your major decision points, having gotten not just the technical information and advice from a project team and the fire department, but also community feedback before you have to make a decision. But to the project team's point, one of the real things for this team to be thinking about throughout today's discussion, and you don't need to make a decision today, the select board is not making a decision tonight, is do you feel comfortable? Because we will not be able to borrow, right? The best project team in the world, but if this committee doesn't feel comfortable making the decisions on this draft timeline we're showing that we all know.
Yeah, I was going to ask them the same question after this, at the close of this meeting. Did I ask these folks, are we up to this, and can we get this? Can we get this done? But let's keep going on our own. No, you did a great job.
I have a few questions. You don't.
I'm good.
And you are.
I'm Jody Petroselli. I met all you at the interview stage. I live in the town. I'm on this committee. It's the only committee. Looking at the timetable that you set out, if I understand what you're saying, August 10th is the date that you would like us as a committee to choose a site. And backtracking from that, July 29th is the date that you've set where we're going to have our final, if you will, community forum where we review what at that point in time is the potential sites with the community, get their feedback so that we can then incorporate it into our August 10th meeting to make a decision, right? And then I just heard you say that when it comes to schematic designs, we're only going to have schematic designs of the final site selection, which makes total sense. But my question is, so we understand what we need to get done before July 29th. What information do we need to have? What decisions do we need to have made before the July 29th community forum meeting so that we can have a productive discussion with the community, having in mind that the big issue is what are the programmatic needs? how are you going to meet the programmatic needs in the building you want us to pay for, and how the programmatic needs are met in the building greatly depends on the site that the building is going to be on. I mean, if there's one thing that I've come away with from everything we've done in the past, 6 months is how you meet those needs at the current site physically looks very different, and your options are very different than how you would meet them at any of the other sites. So how do we have that discussion on July 29 about what site we're choosing when we can't have a discussion about this is how we meet those needs?
So let me parse out some of the technical jargon that we use in the industry. So going into that meeting, you will have conceptual options. That means you will understand in broad terms, it's a 1-story, 2-story building. It takes up this much square footage on the site. The site plan looks roughly like this. That doesn't mean that's the final layout, but you'll understand in broad terms what that building generally looks like on that site. That is much different than what schematic design is, which is a more in-depth series of design documents that allows an estimator to put more hard numbers on it. For that first selection, conceptual design, you will have rough orders of magnitude. So the square foot cost for the buildings will be roughly the same. There might be some differentiation for foundation types or construction types or number of stories or mitigation, but generally they are rough square foot numbers, based on what is typical for construction of this, a building of this type in this area and all of that. What the program's needs are, right? We'll know how many square feet the building is on each site, taking into account that one site might be slightly more than another because of site orientation. FS1 site, for example, now, right, requires most likely a taller building because you just don't have the footprint. Schematic design takes a single design and really develops that to a level where a cost estimator can take takeoffs from the documents and the narratives to produce a cost estimate that is reflective of the level of detail needed to create a total project budget as we described earlier.
So those designs that predate the schematic designs.
We call them conceptual level testing.
Okay. What are they called?
Concept designs.
Yeah.
Well, the concept designs give us information, for example, because I'm just trying to anticipate the conversation we're going to have with the community, the questions they're going to have, and our ability to answer them. At that point in time, we will have determined, just by way of example, I assume, okay, FS1 needs dorm space for 10 firefighters. Will we be able to have a discussion, on a concept level of, on site 1, this is what those dorms would look like. These would be single dorms, double dorms, flex dorms, that type of thing. And versus this is what it would look like on concept 2. Same thing for office space and, those type of back end things. This is what we're thinking of conceptualize if you built it on site 1 versus this is what it would look like on site 2. Because those are the types of questions we're getting from the community. Why do you need 6 individual offices? Why do you need 10 individual dorm rooms? We want to be able to have a conversation about why that's needed on a specific site, or why, if you choose this site over this site, we can change that a little bit. And this is what we're thinking. Will we have that type of information?
So on a program level,
Yes.
we'd like you to resolve those specific program needs with us before we even get to conceptual design.
So like July 13th.
So right, in terms of number of offices, in terms of dorm counts, we want the net square footage, so things that are programmed like offices, and we want that resolved so that we can go into the conceptual design. So each conceptual design reflects the same program. That doesn't mean the result is going to be the same. Obviously, as you know, there's a number of different site challenges on each site, and that results in a different building. And perhaps, in some cases may need some consideration back to the program. We might need to say, well, in FS1, there's the need to create different size bays because of the slope on the site, and that results in a bigger building for some reason, right? That's just a conceptual level option that we will know that by the time we get to conceptual level.
So that means that by our July 13th meeting, we need to have fully discussed and reached a consensus about this conversation that we've been putting off for a long time, which is let's delve into what the programmatic needs actually are and how we're going to meet them.
And we
July
in this
13th
room-
is our deadline for that.
And we in this room must all be a part of that discussion.
There is one thing that is not here on anything here because we have not been able to. KBA just got on board on Wednesday. Is the designer's work plan, which is exactly what you're talking about and how we get to that program. And it's going to be basically another one of these that doesn't include this group, that includes town administrators, fire department, and who these guys and PMA need to meet with.
Mhm.
And that's all going to be happening. That's being built out. I asked these guys to continue that conversation last week. But Jody, exactly what you just said, that's all going to be happening at the exact same time as this with these guys as well. What maybe isn't on this list right here is that those test fits are going to be continued to be discussed at that 27th meeting. So the KBA team is going to be looking to answer all those program questions. There might be one or two things lingering at that 13th meeting that are still being finalized at the 27th. So no, I don't think that the program will be fully flushed out at the 13th. It's very likely that it'll fall to the 27th. These are just high level topics, and before we set an agenda, we're going to make sure that you guys know what's being discussed at those meetings. So if something else is being discussed at one of those meetings, we'll add it to that. It may be a discussion of test fits and program at the 13th, and then a discussion of test fits and program at the 27th as well. But this is just that high level roadmap of how we can get to that 11th date. You guys add anything you want to add to that? But you did hit the nail on the head. There is a full designer work plan that is incorporated into this schedule on how to get there.
And that ends with us doing the work that we need to do and reaching some type of decision, essentially by the 13th, at the latest, the 27th.
I think so.
On when it comes to program.
Program.
Yes,
Which is
yes.
only one, just for anyone
One
who's
piece.
watching, we don't want them to say, oh my goodness, these people are gonna do everything in 4 weeks.
No,
But I think
just this is what needs to be in the
Yeah,
building. We choose the
Correct,
design.
but yeah,
Exactly.
the program needs, and then from there, you have a rough order of magnitude and conceptual cost and design that you can
Yes.
go to a forum with, then you make a decision on site, and then you refine that significantly with
Yes.
the schematic design budget.
How can we come up with a conceptual design where we don't have access to two of the sites?
Okay.
Well, so one of the things that Walter mentioned in passing is we've done the pre-feasibility on 2 of the sites. They're going to advance that further starting this week with title search and a partial survey so that we can certify, right? When you look at Deerfield and the little leg that comes up to High Street,
Yeah.
Want to get down to obviously the inch with a surveyor of can we fit an apparatus out of the existing shape, right? Because that's going to have a significant impact, I would imagine, on the decision-making process for this group. Title search in regards to the existing easements is ongoing or will be for the land behind Starbucks.
As soon as I can.
But just as a, not to split hairs here, but so, I mean, we do technically have access. It's a question of the sufficiency of that access, and we want to make sure that we get drilled down to a more technical answer on both. Ideally by the 13th, and if not, by the 27th. And correct me if I'm wrong, Walter, but generally, if you have, when you're at this concept level stage, the more unknowns there are, the more they're going to have to bake in a certain contingency of risk.
And that's what those rough order of magnitude costs are going to do. That's going to include a cost for that access to lot 14-131.
Right.
There'll be a cost portion of that is different than Deerfield, that is different than FS1.
Right.
That'll be one of the differentiators for a cost portion of that. It'll also be on your site matrix that there's a consideration that there potentially could be a taking or increasement of that easement, and that'll be a consideration. So it'll be not only a cost consideration, but also a community discussion piece. So.
Do I understand what you guys are saying, that, you know, having in mind the timetable we're looking at, that at any point along the process, if you feel comfortable that you have enough information that makes one of the 3 potential sites less advantageous either from a design perspective or a cost perspective from the other two, that we'll be able to have a discussion whenever you think you can and potentially limit our options from 3 to 2 so that our final discussion is just about the 2 sites.
If we had sufficient information to make that decision
You'd
today,
get anywhere
we would love
Let
you to
us
make
know.
that decision.
Yeah.
If at any
All
point,
I think that's a collaborative discussion
Yeah.
for all of us, is that the
It's a good
committee is
point.
comfortable with that, yeah, right? And this is consistent, then someone will go full video and say, no, you said it's like a few months ago, but if we find something that's a project killer,
Yes.
right, which is why we did the pre-feasibility, like, are there, vernal pools galore, which there weren't, maintaining, at that point, maintaining choices like an illusion of choice would not be constructive, in my opinion. So provided the committee is comfortable with it, if we reach kind of a technical impasse, we could always call a special meeting and bring it to you.
Okay, good.
absolutely.
That would
Wait,
be our
wait, wait,
intent
wait.
if we did something.
Communications. Do we have a timeline on website, Facebook page? When can we start like loading these, using these? Are they available now? I saw one. I don't know if I was supposed to see it or not, but I know that there's one up.
I'll let you know that the Facebook page is live. We have not made it public yet. We have every document that is available on the FS1 website. Julia put that together for
Yes.
us. And once we were planning to go kind of in line with when the website's available, and I don't have that date in front of me. Do you have it?
It's supposed to be July 13th.
So the website is anticipated to go live July 13th. Does anyone else in the group have any update on website other than that? That was the last timeline PMA saw.
That's to me awfully late,
That's
considering what we're trying to do. And I understand that we're not the only ones making that decision for that date.
I don't disagree. I think
it's
the one.
a function of how fast the vendor can make it.
That's what I-
It's not,
So the question is, what, in your opinion, is the most efficient way for us to use electronic means to get information to the community before, like, I assume after July 13th or 15th, whatever you said, the best thing for us to do is just to use whatever means we can and funnel everyone to the website. But before that website is live, what's the best way for us to do that? Because right now we've got private, accounts, we've got private Facebook pages, social media pages, we got the town information. It's kind of all over the place.
With no controls.
well, you do have an existing project page, it's just not as clean as what will be the new one. So I would still say, as a general practice, directing people to
So the towns,
westwoodma.gov/FS1 has everything. Not to put you on the spot, but given we have a few weeks until the new website and stuff, I would say once you're all ready, unless this committee feels differently, but project Facebook page may as well just go live.
I don't disagree. We don't want to do anything out of step with you guys. We're happy to launch. We're happy to go public ASAP.
I would do that.
We'll
And
keep the website link that we have to the project page as the current Westwood one, and then
Yes.
once the other one goes live, we'll put that on there. We'll have a note on there coming soon.
But I believe the URL is actually going to be the same. Is it
URL
not?
is gonna be
Yeah. So right now it's a redirect link that goes to like a 700 character municipal website link.
Got it.
Right, as we all know and love. The idea is that for folks who are following along and are doing
It was the link will stay the same.
the link will stay the same. We'll just go to
It's all the same content anyways.
It is. It's just a question of acceptability.
repackaging it.
Yeah, it's repackaged.
is it possible, Julia, before we get to the real website, to have you guys take a look at the existing FS1 page on the town website and admit, because it's really not useful.
There's a lot of information on there, but it's
And
hard to
maybe
get
make a
to. And
few
what are you looking for?
Easy suggestions as to what we could do in the meantime to make it,
On the
viable,
page on the website.
user friendly.
Yeah, on the current town.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would also put that back on you folks, that if there are specifics that you have in mind, tell us, right? Like or people who aren't, it gets, in my experience, increasingly difficult for us all when we get pickled in the information about these projects to have like a fresh set of eyes when we look at it, because we just know where everything is. If you, want to do a secret shopper and have one of your friends go to it, and, and then tell us what did you tell them to find, and could they?
On this subject, we have Sarah and Harry here.
Yep.
And I
Yeah,
hope they will feel free to jump in at any time, because this is what we're talking about. It's what you guys
I
are.
believe a post went out on Friday as well on the wire. Laura?
Yeah.
So,
Laura,
so-
The first of July.
Yeah, that'll be, so we'll be doing things through the town's existing e-newsletter. There's, this is a older school way of doing it, but still important. There will be a buck slip in every tax bill that goes out this summer as well, with just update on where are we. Your neighbors voted to advance this on May 4th. Here's a QR code to go to the website and sign, or actually the QR code goes to sign up for the newsletter, which I think is actually more important because people aren't going to kind of habitually refresh and go back to the website, but if they sign up for the letter and get a hold of it more easily.
Harry, you've taken off the thing. Are you dying to say something?
I was just going to point out Laura has her hand up and she's an attendee, so I think she needs to be enabled to comment.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Laura Hayes. I'm the Administrative and Communications Coordinator. I just want to chime in and say, so the next issue of The Wire will be going out on 7/1, and what they were talking about is I had sent out just hey, does anyone have any information that they would like to get in The Wire? And so we are already planning and actively working on an FS1 update that will be going in that July issue.
Laura, you and I have also talked about, having almost a daily question and answer thing that could go out to people just to keeping their eye on what we're up to. And I don't know if that's taken any.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team, the communications team needs to regroup with the designer since you guys are now on, and just kind of work on what our next steps is going to look like. Because what board is talking about, we've definitely had talks about what communications could look like moving forward.
Yeah, and that's also something, the OPM can use for project specific Facebook to push stuff out much more regularly.
We typically do and it's going to be important to do it for this phase, but did you know, we're going to have to tailor it more towards a feasibility discussion, because did you know is typically as we approach the vote, but the important piece here is going to be able to get people on board in advance of those decisions at the feasibility and concept level. So we're going to tailor up some did you knows to get posted. Probably won't be every day did you knows, maybe one every couple days to keep the engagement on that Facebook page.
People say in Westwood and other communities that I've been involved in, nobody's here. They're all gone away, but they still have their phones with them, and they're still looking at their phones constantly.
Yep.
And I think, that's how you're going to have to communicate, because we're going to have a meeting the end of July. They're not going to be here. We're going to have to do that remote for a large case, but both. But I think they're still on their phones more than once a day at the beach or wherever. So I think we need to go get to them that way.
John and Sarah.
Give a couple hands up, committee members.
Sarah, you want to add to this on the communications thing or whatever?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on the conversation about what to do to bridge the gap before the new website is launched, is just keeping that updates section there, that like kind of top bullet section, just totally up to date. So what I would recommend is everything from this presentation goes there, like Laura, if we can today, just that people know where we're going with it. And it's even just a hot level sentence and then a link to this presentation. I think that would be the most important next step for the current website to kind of bridge that, just putting whatever is the most relevant to the project at the moment at the top of that page, knowing that it's a little bit clunky, but at least then it's getting the most important kind of updates out there. And then eventually we'll transition to the new website.
Thanks, Sarah. John Cummings.
Hey, how you doing? Great meeting so far, and welcome to the team. I had a couple questions. So I'm also on the PBC with Ken. I've been on it for 17, 18 years. I have my CSL, was an engineer for Westinghouse, Siemens, and Florida Power and Light. One thing we haven't hit was the iNet, which is located at the current fire station, which is the data highway for the town. Jody asked all my questions and much more eloquently than I would have. Excellent. All the follow-up ones. I'm assuming that when you do the concept designs, you'll have the breakdown of pros, cons, all that.
Correct, and we're well aware of the infrastructure that's housed at FS1 now. This is not out of the ordinary, unfortunately, for us, moving that or accommodating that in temporary facilities. Ideally, they'll be housed in a permanent location sooner rather than later. That is good, but ultimately that goes into the considerations for the different design options and making sure if it continues to stay within the fire department that there's appropriate space for it. And it's a pretty straightforward thing. We're doing it currently in Easton with their system. We've done it in a number of other municipalities with their systems. Really important piece of the project.
That'll look similar for all three because it's a piece that needs to be incorporated into all three. So not a differentiator, but will be accounted for.
Right. And I had one other request, I guess, for the websites. Is there any way to have a table of contents? That may not be the correct social media thing, but when you open up the fire page, there's 25,000 documents. Whereas if you broke down, here's the meetings, here's the schematic designs, here's the problematic needs, and then you can hit all the documentation thereon.
Yeah, there should be like a drop down menu at the top across the bar. I was kind of, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like I think that's what he's alluding to.
Yep.
I could definitely
something to make it easier for people to look at what they want instead of just
yeah, we'll do that.
Harry?
Thanks, Ford. Yeah, just a quick note. Welcome to the team, everyone. A quick introduction. My name is Harry Davis. I've been on the committee since we got started. No formal training or background in engineering or any of these matters, but more just public policy and civic engagement's always been just a personal interest of mine. So excited to be part of this project and moving this forward. While we're talking about community outreach, and this, Sarah, this would maybe be something you and I run, with, but just surfacing it for the group. One thing that's been raised to me, and I had a similar thought, and as we think about this, we probably missed the boat a little bit on this as we're heading into the summer, and events start to die down. But I think once August and September rolls around, is we've I don't say missed, but there's more of an opportunity to leverage maybe some of the smaller gatherings, groups in towns rather than kind of these big, social media is great, media is, public forums are great and whatnot, but some of the things that have been floated to me, right, was Katie Willett actually brought this up at a lacrosse game a couple weeks ago. She said, we had a Westwood Pride Day. It would have been a great opportunity to get a table there. Using lacrosse as an example, right? Like any type of large gathering, maybe the soccer fields, just setting up some type of table once in September, once we get there. Westwood Young Women's Club. I've had parents at Sheehan say we have a little gathering where we talk about Sheehan related matters. So maybe just opportunity for these more, it's the term I'm looking for. Just kind of making our presence known at or felt at some of these areas or gatherings in town that aren't specific to FS1, but just making our presence felt there where we can either distribute information, chat with community members. Again, nothing that's, immediate action needed or nothing we're going to solve for today, but I think something to potentially think about when we think about community engagement as we get closer to the fall and activities start to ramp up around town again. So just wanted to bring that feedback to the group.
Harry, I appreciate that. I guess it's not to assign work to you and Sarah, but given your being kind of tapped into that, I think it would be.
Shouldn't have said a word. I should just kept on.
I agree. I think everyone, the team here understands that. Is that something that maybe you, Sarah, or anyone on FS1? You're all community members. You know Westwood better than the project team. Maybe can pull a shared document together, like a Google spreadsheet of here's some major community events, here's some athletics or some PTO related stuff coming, July, August through November, and just start putting some of those up on the board so that KDA and PMA have eyes on that and can start to think about, because again, one of the benefits you all have by having this steering committee is not every single person needs to be at every single event, but there's enough of us collectively working as a team. We can divide it and I don't like using the word conquer, but
Engage.
Provide and engage. There you go. And if you kind of crowdsource that for us, I think that'd be a really awesome resource for PMA and KBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that tongue in cheek. I figured this would be something that Sarah and I, given our subcommittee work, would probably own anyway. So happy to do it. And just one final thought on that. In going back to that conversation mentioned with Katie Willett from school committee, we're a fairly large committee, but to your point, like there's only so many hands, that we can have different places. I wonder if it almost makes sense for some of these events where people that are just supporters of the project offer to kind of sit in or staff a table for us. Katie, again, was a perfect example. She's like, I'd be happy to sit there for an hour and share some information. So that may be something we could talk about a little bit with Sarah. If the people that are clearly vocal supporters of the project who are willing to hey, I'll be at the soccer field. I'm happy to sit there for an hour. Maybe we can gather a little bit of a stable or a reserve bullpen, if you will, of folks that are willing to help us out. But again, Sarah, we can talk about this and kick around some different ideas.
Yep, that sounds great. Happy to help with this.
So if you haven't gotten a sense, we have a great team who are interested in communications, along with Laura, who's at the townhouse. The three of them are incredible. Molly helps them out. I know that, but they're incredible. So they're part of our team that are out to help. So I think coordinated efforts, especially from the staff, your staff, would be very helpful. And maybe we'll share emails and share contact information so they'll have it. I want to go back to programmatic needs, and I'm looking at my schedule. I have us for a June 29th meeting, and it doesn't sound like that's in my schedule, but maybe not in anybody else's. I think I know I would like to be involved in the discussions that you have with the chief and the assistant chief and all that, and maybe others would too. And Jody, I think we have some ideas. So I think maybe not the whole committee should get together, but when you have that meeting, if some of us could sit in on it.
So it's not going to be one meeting.
Yes.
Then having us as part of it,
Yeah.
the process, I think would be helpful for them, but be helpful for us, because that's one of the biggest confusions that we get out in the community. Why do they need decon space? Why do they need training space? Why do they need these things? And I think I know the answers to that, but it's getting it out to the
Digestible.
people.
Yeah.
And I think you need us to do that. And I think we can be most helpful. So when you have your small, and just let us know. And if one of us can be there, we'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, as Walter alluded to, it will likely be multiple meetings, and what we can do is we'll circle up with fire department leadership and town hall and get some of those dates together, and provided the committee's fine with it, I always default to chair, vice chair as reps. If you
That would be fine.
We could vote one day, and the two of you come in, we can do it.
Yeah, that would be great.
And that would be in advance of the 13th, so that you have everyone on the committee is going to get. I expect a robust readout, a report. From 13th, as the project team alluded to, if there's more things outstanding or some additional refinement before the 27th, that's okay. But happy to include two of you.
That would be great, because by the time, that's what the building design is going to be based on, is what the programmatic needs are. Yes, this space and all that, but I think it's absolutely critical that they get what they need to have for the citizens of Westwood and for their own.
Well, can I ask a question about the programs? Can we get a sort of a rough understanding of different elements of the programs, like the cost associated with it? Because I like debating over something that's a $50,000 piece versus a $600,000 piece. I don't know that we need to be spending our time on something like that.
That's a good point.
I would love to have a rough estimate. Okay, let's really debate the big ticket items, because that's the important stuff. Whether somebody has a certain, meeting space or whatever, that might be pretty flexible. So just the value of it, I think that would be important to take into consideration.
What do you mean, like for the 13th, in addition to the preliminary validation exercise that's going to be reviewed with KBA could have a
Good morning, Westwood Town Hall.
medium, low cost?
Yeah, I think for our
high cost is probably going to be what's.
But I'm talking about
the bays.
I'm talking
Sewer hookup. I'm gonna transfer you to.
Hold on, we got some.
A plus.
Can I have a question? Can you get rid of the shared screen?
You can.
Would you like just breaking it
For-
into
yeah, for our-
so
for our
instead of
benefit,
like
yeah.
the types of like fixtures, right?
Yeah.
It's lower impact compared to
Yeah,
like, the
yeah.
number of bays.
Yeah,
right?
so I mean, so you know, we talk about like the workout space or some, you know, something, the meeting
Just one
space or
sticker.
something that, you know, we just differentiate, and so we don't, you know, so we know how to dedicate our time.
So what I would say is that on a cost per square foot basis, there isn't going to be drastic differences between the types of spaces within the fire department, right? There are some that cost slightly more, decontamination spaces, for
Mhm.
example. There are some that cost slightly less, pump rooms, for example. But the cost differential between the two by square foot is very minimal. The issue, in your case, likely will come down to how many of what things go in the building, not how big that one particular thing is or is not. Generally, these buildings are designed very efficiently to accommodate the needs of the department. Bunk rooms are not very spacious. They're fairly, small in terms of scale. The question really comes down to one, how efficient can you make those in relationship to the rest of the building? So the gross square footage, we'll start talking about net and gross square footage. Net square footage is the program square footage. The gross square footage is everything else you need in a building to make it a building that is not programmatic square footage. So corridors, walls, mechanical spaces, chases, all of that stuff. We not only want a very efficient program, but more importantly, we want a very efficient net to gross ratio so that we're spending more money on the net square footage, the things you want for your building and the department needs for their building, and less on gross square footage, so thicknesses of walls and corridors and things like that. The site, in your case, will play a big role in that. Options on those sites will be more or less efficient based on the way we can lay out the building on those sites. That said, there are other considerations on all of those sites to counteract some of those or to enhance some of those efficiencies. So that's really where it comes down to. And then certainly on a cost basis, the apparatus bay is the largest portion of the building, most likely, and will garner probably a lot of attention on how many bays, at what size do you need, and how much ability for growth and future accommodations do you make. Typically, that square footage cost is slightly lower. Bays are big open empty spaces. Right. This is kind of just a big box, so they're relatively cost effective to build. It's just a matter of the differential between that and other spaces is just not that big.
It's also very difficult to estimate that way.
So, Greg, what we heard when it was turned down is you don't need 5 bays, you only need 4. But I think the bigger issues were, look how many bathrooms they had, or look how many dorm rooms they had. And your explanation was excellent there. That's the kind of thing people need, is that kind of an explanation when we get down to that road. We're not there, but that's it.
Yeah, so certainly we'll be analyzing the existing program, which we've done. We'll be talking directly with the department to understand their operations, and then obviously talking with all of you included in that to make sure that it's clear and transparent as to how those decisions are made. But it's not a process that's unique to this project. This is fairly.
Is there anything else that we need to get to other than my final question to the committee, all of you? I asked, are they ready to go ahead and try to achieve this goal, or are we willing to contribute to that process and get it done?
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody in agreement to that?
Absolutely. We also have to do the minutes.
Okay. So the town has a commitment from all of us that we're going to work towards this schedule as long as we possibly can, and then to finally get a yes.
Ford, you mentioned right now you had on your calendar the 29th.
I've taken it off.
We don't see that we're going to have enough product to bring to you. We don't want to. We're going to use a lot of your time. We don't want to waste any of it.
No.
So next meeting, July 13th.
I'm going to announce it July 13th. So, anything else?
I'm at Q&A.
I typically ask after this discussion, is there anyone in the community or press that would like to make a comment? The staff and all of us will answer to the extent we need to, but we will not have a debate. Are there any other questions from community or staff? I mean, from the staff or press? From citizens? We have one here. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, do I need to come closer or can?
You are great right where you
are.
are. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane, ardent supporter of the fire station project. I worked actively on the prior two campaigns that unfortunately didn't pass. Love the urgency and love the energy going into the project, and loved everybody's commitment to getting this done. And Ford, I agree with your comment that this is a real benefit to the community to put it on this schedule. That said, I have some experience in terms of trying to motivate voters and educate voters, and things I would have done differently had I known it, the past two times. It was mentioned here today that some of our events have been well attended. They were better attended, that was good, but I wouldn't call them well attended when you're gonna have, we had 4,000 people vote in September when it failed the second time. We're probably gonna have more than that at a state election. We really need to be realistic about reaching those people so people aren't walking into the election and saying, I'm not in a good mood today, I'm gonna check no on this vote, or I'm not happy because the town, doesn't stop speeding on my street. So people will vote no for different reasons. Right. So I am concerned about how we're going to reach out to those people. It's a challenge. Harry and Sarah, I love your ideas and enthusiasm. And I do agree, Harry, that you need to bring in more people. And I think it also is good if it's a demographic of who you're trying to reach, if it's a soccer parent at the soccer field, as opposed to retired person at the soccer field. But I am willing to help Harry and Sarah and along those lines. I think we did a meet and greet with a firefighter. Harry, you were really instrumental in trying to get people there. It was a struggle to get people there because people don't want to give up their time, understandably so. I think events like that are really helpful to meet and greet the firefighters that you're going to be making a decision about their building. And I know that there was we need to lure people to these forums. And I just had some, top of the head ideas, but if we can at all provide some sort of child care at a forum, especially if it's at night, and maybe that child care could be in the form of like a library story time about firefighters. They did something like that. I think it was pretty well received. I think the difference was, I think a lot of people from other towns came to it. So if we could try to make it be Westwood people, but maybe there's a story time so the parent could pop into the adult part of the meeting. And once again, building that camaraderie with the firefighters. I don't know if this is legal on a municipal project. Maybe.
That's my favorite. You turn and look at me.
It's some research. But
that's my
how do you
second
lure
favorite
people?
thing.
How do you attract people to come to a meeting? If somebody said I could enter a drawing to get something, I'd be more inclined to go. So I was thinking of maybe we have a drawing for a ride to school in a fire truck. And I believe it's okay. I was online. I think as long as you're not charging money for the ticket, and finally food or ice cream at a meeting. Just ideas. We need to get people there. There's a lot of great information. There's a lot of passion in getting this project done right. But I am concerned about getting the people that will vote yes. They're on November 3rd. And I also feel, I'd like to know, when will programmatic needs be discussed publicly? Because you want community input into what we want in the project or what kind of project we want. But it seems as though that's all going behind closed doors.
No, they're gonna. Okay. I mean, some of it is necessarily I don't love the term behind closed doors. Some of it is technical and administrative, obviously, but will be discussed publicly based on this work schedule at the FS1 committee's next meeting on the 13th of July.
On the 13th of July, it will be discussed.
Okay, but will there be time to incorporate? I mean, I want to make sure that the fire department gets what they need and they don't get worn down. And that, that they get what they need, and not, and also will firefighters be able to participate in those discussions too? And I'll move along here. How will you launch this Facebook page and attract people to sign up for it? Because it's great if you have a Facebook page, but not if nobody's.
We join every Westwood group. We'll need, we already have quite a few of them.
Okay.
But we have to be very careful with OCPF. We cannot.
With what?
Ops campaign political finance.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We need to be very careful with that. So we have to be strategic in how we do it so we can join those groups. But we'll need the committee and the outreach committee's involvement in pushing information out. We can create the information. We can't go give it.
You can't lobby.
Exactly.
Right. They can put information out, but much like, there's certain carve outs for policy making officials like myself, fire chief, it is expected under campaign finance law that the chief people you put in charge of those decisions let people know what they think. But we take those things very seriously that, it is not the project manager's job to tell people you have to go vote yes.
Right.
It is their job to put good, sound data out for folks. So I think that's what Walter's saying. But as far as people being aware of it, they join pages, the town can cross-share their page. But their Facebook page is the project Facebook page is going to be dedicated to here's where the project is, here's the information we're doing, here's how you can engage, here's key dates. But it's not going to say go yes, go yes.
No, I know that.
And we also can't say come look here. We can say this is where you can go look. It's a very soft distinction, but we're going to need people to as Connor mentioned, we're going to need people to cross share when we post. Say, hey, look at this. What was just posted.
Always or only at the point where the town has voted to put the item on a ballot?
Always.
That's a great
question.
There are some technical distinctions there where, and don't quote me on this, we'll make sure we're not only coordinating with the project manager, but also town legal counsel. There are distinctions around municipal use of funds where there's a real difference between the allowance for towns to send information for town meeting, right? And advocating, right? Because as we know, Finance and Warrant Commission takes a position.
Yes.
Select board, by virtue of putting something forward, are taking a position. So it is expected to an extent that for the legislative function that you're sharing, we think you should vote yes on this. But then once you've scheduled an election, there's some different rules that I am familiar with. I can't quote them off the top of my head, but I promise you we'll be reviewing in great detail before we get that close. Because I have gone through it, these folks have gone through it. We'll make sure that everyone is dotting I's across the T's. And so the last thing we need is, frankly, people will. Let's all be super clear. That's coming.
You will be attacked.
Well, it is.
But we don't want to take up 10 hours of Molly's day responding to those complaints.
Correct. And we take them very seriously, and I have a high degree of confidence in our team that we can make sure we're doing the right things. But also, we do have to educate individual folks, right? That's actually
Education should be our primary goal. That's really what it is. I've always believed that. Communicate and educate. And then the rest will take care of itself.
Right? Okay. And just the last thing I'll say is you might want to think about doing a standalone Westwood Wire as opposed to putting FS1 in.
Yeah, as we get closer, and we have Walter had a point that I think is really important is when we are getting closer to that July forum and we have something specific to share, then that's when those things become more impactful. Because if you don't want to dilute it and have it turn into noise, right? If you start doing it now before you have, and the marketing professionals shaking their heads, which is somewhat validating after my experience, but Yes, is the short answer. Especially when we have those higher visibility points where we want to make sure that the committee's hearing from the community, but we will absolutely leverage those tools. We just want to make sure that it's when there's actionable things for people. In my prior community, we did an MSBA project from 2017 through 23. And one of the pieces, although it got approved, very, very strongly, one of the pieces of feedback that we took to heart from folks was, gee, ended up with a great product, like we're okay with this, but it would have been neat had we been able to be engaged earlier, at a site alternative analysis level of like different sites and things like that. And so then when, a few years later, we started doing police, fire, and public works. We did that, and very often, so we would be at like community events, your equivalent to Westwood Day. We would have, I think we had 8 sites we were looking at, and folks would come to speak to us and say, well, which site is going to be and how much will it cost? And say, oh, we don't know. We want to know what you think. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this information, right? So it's a balance of, you want to have open door, you want to do these things filmed, you want to have people be able to come in, but having kind of actionable information is really important. So as we get to those points, we'll make sure that we're not kind of tucking these things in with like routine other updates, but like dedicated, highlighted things, I think.
Right. Just, I understand everything you just said. I always believe like you got to tell people like something 3 times in 3 different ways to get them to say, hey, maybe I need to look at this. And we all have been following this, and to us it's top of mind, but to other people it might seem like, where did this come from? You're going to have a site selection by August 10th.
Right.
So I even if you put something out there, just put the video out on the town's webpage that, or the Facebook page that this meeting happened today. It was kind of a kickoff meeting.
Do you do in session?
No, not yet.
Or WMC?
Not yet.
No, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thank you, Kathy. We have not done that yet.
Those are
I'm
helpful.
still avoiding. Any others, Allison, on there? Okay, moving on, approval of minutes for May 18th. They have been sent out to you. I'll accept the motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, I'll poll the board. Jody Petroselli,
Yes.
Ken Ayers,
Yes.
Peter Bean, Sarah Cantley, John Cummings,
Yes.
Harry Davis, Paul DeLay,
Yes.
and Ford Spalding is a yes. So they have been approved. Our next meeting is July 13th, but you will be hearing from us in between that period of time. Thank you all for coming, and have a good day.
Great.
Thank you.